Hi everyone, I'm Sheila
Hi.
Kamara Hay of Ecstatic Birth, and I'm live today with my friend Ann Margolis of Home Sweet Home Birth, and who is also a featured midwife in the incredible groundbreaking documentary Orgasmic Birth. And today we're going to be talking to you about opening to pleasure. But first I want to give you like a little intro to Ann. Ann is an incredible woman. She's a holistic midwife. She's a childbirth educator. She's also a breathwork practitioner, a dance teacher. She is like such a multi-talented woman, and we have both together been immersed in the School of Womanly Arts, which is a school for pleasure in New York City. So we are excited to talk to you today about opening to pleasure. Welcome, Anne.
Hi. Great to be here again with you.
I always love connecting with you. It's so fun.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. I've been doing a lot of these conversations, and it's interesting to see what kind of titles people react to or intrigued by. And as soon as I wrote, the midwife from Orgasmic Birth, I started getting all these like hearts and likes. And I think there is something about this idea that like birth can be orgasmic that really like draws people. And I would love, like, I know what your perspective is on that. And I would love to kind of talk about that and really, raise awareness about what is it when we're talking about orgasmic birth or ecstatic birth. What is the actual experience like? What have you seen as a midwife?
Well, what I have seen as a midwife, and I was in, I was in that film, and I think, as much as Deborah Pascali, the producer of it, wanted to focus on the, tapping into the sensual and bringing pleasure into the experience. What I see is it's so much broader than a sexual orgasm. In fact, I have never seen a woman have an orgasm during birth. I have seen a lot of sensual and sexual expression. I have seen incredible amounts of pleasure, and I have seen people, even despite the most extraordinary challenges, have a peak life experience, an ecstatic experience, an orgasmic experience. In fact, Deborah was going to name the feature film Ecstatic Birth, but changed it to Orgasmic when she was coached to do that for the ratings or something. I'm not really sure. And in fact, I think in the film, they did capture a woman or two having an orgasm during birth. But I didn't want, and women have sometimes said to me they felt like a failure because they did not have an orgasm in their birth. And I really think Deborah is really meaning for it to be an orgasmic experience when women and their families are treated in this way, like the home birth midwifery model of care, supporting sensitive, individualized care, non-intervention, and honoring and empowering the woman, and to birth naturally, and according to what her intuition and instincts and according to what she wants to do, right? Respectful care, so when a woman is encouraged to birth like that on her own, and with the loving support of her team, yes, we're not gonna, it's not kumbaya. We're not gonna mince words. It can be extremely intense. Yes, it can be painful, but it can be, when women do that, and it's a healthy pain, it's a pain with a purpose. And, people don't like to use the word pain, but some women do experience these sensations as pain. But I've had women tell me they're in ecstasy with their pain. I've had people have the most challenging of experiences, and birth will take a woman to her edge and beyond. And that's where growth happens. That's where transformation happens. And that's when a woman will come through. She taps into her strength when she doubted that she could do it multiple times, especially in the end when it gets the most intense. And then she births, and the high that she'll feel after that. I mean, I've had women tell me they want to shout from the rooftops. Even, from the outside, I could see they were having a really hard time of it, right? So that tells us so many things. Yes, it can be incredibly challenging, but it can be so rewarding and deeply orgasmic, ecstatic, blissful, peak life experience of a lifetime.
I think you bring up so many interesting points. And the first being, the last thing we want to do as birth workers that are talking about pleasure in birth is create like a standard that women have to achieve, that they feel like a failure.
Yeah. And there's no failure in birth.
There's
Can't fail at labor. No.
But it, you know, and it's really interesting, this idea of orgasmic as like a broad orgasmic experience, right? Like this chocolate is orgasmic, this like party is orgasmic. And I think it's just such a lovely energy to bring into the birthing room, to have this, you know, this idea that it can be this peak experience. And when you were talking about it, when you were talking about how women have that, it felt like a peak experience. Like I could feel your energy rise, and that feeling of like there's an edge, right? There's this edge that we come to in birth. And it's a rite of passage. It's an intense experience. Everything changes on the other side of that. So it makes sense, right? That there should be all of these gifts for us to receive, whether that's physical pleasure or emotional pleasure or spiritual pleasure. So I was wondering, can you talk a little bit more about like, how do you see that playing out for women that want to become more open to pleasure in these experiences that you've witnessed of, you know, ecstasy, or like what are some of the things that you see that you would recommend to women?
The ingredients, yes, and we've talked about this before. So I always encourage women to tap into, you know, we need women in the West to be more embodied. We're just too much in our heads, and so the more that we can tap into, you know, a body experience, a sensual experience. You know, when women are I encourage women to come up with sort of birth preferences, a list of, or a paragraph or journal, you know, the birth that they dream and they envision, and to think about their five senses. What is it that they can see that can inspire them? So, you know, for some women that might be pictures of the, you know, birthing women since the beginning of time, or, you know, pictures of their family. You know, it's really empowering and inspirational to see women birthing upright in stone carvings in, you know, ancient Egypt or Africa, or, you know, all over the world, and surrounded by other women. And it could be a woman wants to see flowers, you know, roses in all their stages, you know, because a closed, firm bud, you know, naturally opens and blossoms into a flower. So sometimes, you know, whatever it is, it could be affirmations, whatever it is that inspires that woman. It could be little Christmas lights, you know, all over the house, candles, you know, what inspires her, what helps her to feel safe, undisturbed, private, and sensual, right? And then what does she like to hear? So what I tell them to make 3 playlists, you know, definitely the relaxing sort of spa-like music, or, you know, it could be a forest, or women, water, a stream of water, or waves, because that kind of is very soothing. And it's like the waves of labor, you know, a wave comes up and then it goes down, and then there's this rest, and then it comes again. And then sometimes we need, you know, the second playlist is like sensual, slow dancing. Usually that's some sort of R&B, or what can get them sort of in the mood and sensual, and it helps them, you know, standing up and slow dancing. And I've done this with women in all locations, and even in the hospital, you know, just lower the lights, turn on some sensual music, dance with your partner. Slow dance, you know, same energy that gets the baby in, gets the baby out. And then sometimes, you know, we got to pick it up. So the third playlist would be like hip hoppy, funk, African, belly dancing sort of music that's going to pick up the energy and help her move her hips and, you know, wiggle that baby down so the baby can navigate down. And sometimes a woman wants to just hear, you know, it's whatever she wants to hear. And that includes how we talk to a woman, the language we use, we use to describe what's going on, and what we say in front of that family, right? You know, usually at birth, I encourage we not engage in a lot of conversation, certainly in front of the mom about her, but even to her, because it gets her out of her intuitive, instinctual right side of her brain and into the thinking brain that can slow things down or interfere. Smell. what can we smell? What can we bring? What smells does that woman like or not like? And I've had women, you know, they love lavender or frankincense or citrus. It could be in the essential oil diffuser. It could be in the massage oil. And I had one woman, she's like, no, I want to smell apple pie. So she, you know, this was a home birth and she wanted baked apples. And so it was very important to her. Her best friend was there and was downstairs, had baked apples going in the oven. And that's helped her. What?
Mine would be chocolate chip cookies, the smell.
Yeah, you know, smell, right? The stick, chocolate, or, you know, but it's the senses, and it just takes us to a very pleasurable place, right? And it inspires and helps, versus, you know, bad breath or bad smells, you know, really strong people can be sensitive in the opposite, can have an opposite effect, a smell that's negative to that woman. Touch, like, what does she like to feel, right? So that could be, what does she want to wear? What kind of sheets does she want on the bed for when she goes in and out of the bed? Towels, you know, the sensual, how she likes to be touched, which we learn about in the School of Womanly Arts. You know, what kind of, you know, when someone is touching her, does she let, you know, she could at some point feel very strongly about, she wants firm, solid, grounding pressure, or, you know, she wants light pressure, or, you know, so this is a conversation that we have with every woman, and I encourage them to think about it, right? Did we miss a sense? Did I get all five?
Well, I don't know if you got all five, but I think the point that you're making is that, you know, a lot of people will think about birth as like, eek, like, oh no, like with that kind of energy, right?
And taste. Yeah, sorry.
Birth from the perspective of like, what would thrill me?
What would thrill me?
Joy. What would give me pleasure? What would be fun? You know, like, like you're planning a party. This is such a sacred
celebration
in your life, right? So bring that energy in, that energy. And the thing that I'm really curious about, because I know that you do breath work, that you're a breath work practitioner, right?
And a lot of breath work practitioner. Yeah.
A lot of the work that that I do with my clients and with my practitioners in my training program is exactly what you highlighted, this like taking the energy and bringing it down into the body, bringing it down. And it's so important. And the more you can bring the energy into your body, then you can start to open to pleasure. And I'm so curious, do you use the breath work with your clients either ahead of birth or during birth?
Yeah, well, as a yoga teacher, the breath work that I use with people is more sort of the breath to calm, right? Mm-hmm. There's so many different types of breath works, but there's breath work that can really help people calm and ground and cope with the sensations. You know, it's like mindfulness practices, getting into, you know, like throw out the now clock, throw out the clock and have like a now clock. So every number says, no numbers, this is now, you know, because we really got to keep women to stay as present as possible, one breath at a time, one sensation at a time, focusing on the sensation and not the story about it. And that really helps just a woman to stay present and grounded and, you know, and successfully deal with what's facing her, and not to think about how can I do this now when I have how many hours, right? So that's part of it. And the clarity breath work that I do is a certain type of breath work to help people heal emotional pain and trauma in the body. And that's, I don't use that in labor. I use that more to help women heal trapped inner stress, emotional pain, and trauma in the body from previous traumatic experiences that are impacting their life. So that's a bit of a separate component. You know, some people have past traumatic birth experiences, or, you know, with the Me Too. Yeah. With the Me Too movement, I mean, you know, how many women have been molested sexually, or, you know, any kind of abuse or upset in her life that's impacting her life currently.
And I also want to share you know, breath is a really powerful tool in sensual expansion as well. So you can actually breathe. Yes, it's very healing because what it does is promote flow, and it opens up energetic blocks like Anne pointed out, but it's also like you can breathe for pleasure. You can breathe yourself into an orgasm. It promotes that you can direct with a practice, you can direct it towards that. So that's also like a really fun way.
Absolutely. And you can send prana wherever your mind, with an intention, you know, you can send breath to the baby. You can connect to the baby. You can send breath and open to birth. Like, you know, it's using visualization and sort of this spiritual component, an expansive component of breath, which is really the conduit between the spiritual realm, and it's our life force, right?
Yeah.
And our bodies. Yeah.
We do a lot of that. I run a year-long training for birth practitioners where we do a lot of these sensual expansion exercises and tie them into how they can be used in labor, whether it's breath or sound or movement. So it's really fun. And you said something to me earlier that I'm very intrigued by, and I was wondering if we could talk about it a little bit. You mentioned that now you're working with a very different population of people than you used to, and you're seeing very different outcomes. And I really want you to share that, and then we can start to dissect it a little bit.
Yeah, so I am also, one of the hats that I wear is that I work in a hospital, in a clinic. It's a clinic population, so the population that comes are predominantly low income from very poor indigenous countries, and I am amazed about how not only how they birth. They birth so well for the vast majority. I'm not talking about those who are sick, but I'm saying, you know, their priorities are very different. You know, they need to survive, so they're not necessarily going to be able to do herbs and take childbirth classes. Many of them can't read, and they certainly don't speak English, and they birth so well. And I'm just thinking, what is going on in the modern world that we're having so you know, the privileged communities, huh?
Just to clarify, by well, do you mean that they have shorter labors? Do you mean that they're more able to have that?
It's a combination. Yeah, it's a combination of things. It's not a big deal for them. They have a tribe, they have a community, they have a family. They're not alone. They're surrounded by mommies who are pregnant and birthing and breastfeeding. They're not stuck in their heads analyzing every little minute detail. They're surviving. They're used to hardship. They're used to challenge, and it's just like they're just used to women having babies. I think many of them have large families, and I think that they're in survival. So like they work hard, and you know, some of them are taking care of large families, and or helping other people in their family. And I'm just amazed that, you know, they don't a lot of them don't want to use any medication, which I'm so happy about, you know, because when I first took this position, I was, you know, and I was seeing that a lot of them, you know, they can't take any childbirth class. They don't even have money for that. They have, even the free ones, they just don't find it valuable. They don't need it. They also they don't have an expectation of perfection, which I think in the modern world, there's this expectation, and also this high tech world where everyone just expects you push a button and out comes something perfect. You know, it's like there's in the childbirth world, there's this expectation that of perfection, and nobody can guarantee that. But I think that it's just part of their life, you know, and I'm amazed how easily they birth. They're not comfortable with discomfort. They, you know, they don't need doulas because they have their mother, their sister, their aunt with them, their partner, and
who isn't scared, who can support.
No, they're just no one's scared. They're just I'm brought to my knees, like in humility. Like I'm humbled by, you know, wow, you know, it's just, they don't, it's not like, it's not complicated. It's not something that they're like freaking out about or having to read Google 20, you know, hours and hours of Googling research and come with these birth plans and everything like that. It's like, life is simple, survival. And I am seeing, like, for the vast majority, they're birthing like naturally, and it's working, and sometimes these women are like 4'10" or 4 and they have 8.5 pound babies and 9 pound babies or even bigger that just slip right out. And they're so grateful for, I am in love with this population, you know, and it's I can't say one race, or like, I don't look at skin color and religion and anything like that. It seems to be something that's common. The less sophisticated they are, the less modern, the more indigenous they are, the more family community that they have or something. And their priorities are, you know, so, I mean, it's like some, you know, the priorities are very different.
You've pointed out like a few key things that really make sense. First, this idea that they're less in their heads, right? That they're more in their bodies. So that makes
much more in their bodies.
Much more in their bodies. This aspect of like community and support really, really helps in labor and throughout pregnancy and postpartum and through the whole cycle. There's one thing that's coming to my mind that I'm curious about, and I wonder.
And they're not intolerant of discomfort.
And they're not intolerant. That's another.
Not at all. They just accept that this is labor, and they just do it. It's you know, and it's like, and we do have people in, you know, in this practice who are more, who, you know, they're not all low income, but I see a real pattern here.
Well, like, I'm curious about one factor though.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, you know, in a lot of the work that I do in expanding to pleasure and sensual expansion, one thing that keeps coming up over and over again is this idea that we as Western women have really weak pelvic floors because we spend so much time sitting. And I'm wondering how do you think that plays a factor too, that, you know, we're sort of like living this more sedentary lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, these people are hardworking. They are hardworking. Some of them have backbreaking manual labor sort of work that they do, and that could play into it, you know. But then again, you know, the women in the more privileged communities, you know, especially the ones that have sought the home birth care, that, you know, there's a self-selected healthier populations that are, let's say, exercising, right? They're taking yoga, they're taking they're going to the gym, they're doing some form of exercise. But I'm seeing, I still see the difference. I still see a big difference.
I'm so glad you're talking about this because there's so much to learn, right? Just the few key points that you pointed out and that we've talked about, like, there's so much to learn from that, right? As a woman thinking about giving birth who wants to open to pleasure, yes, there's this whole realm of bringing the energy of pleasure in and joy in, but there's this other realm about, like, don't be afraid of hard work. Like, don't be afraid to be uncomfortable, right? And to how can you practice that in your day-to-day life? How can you practice that so that you become familiar with that grit, that uncomfortableness?
They're connected more with biology. Many of them, you know, some of them in their other countries were rural farming, you know, hard manual labor, and they have animals and they see the animals birthing, and it's just no biggie. You know, yes, it's this beautiful, of course, it's a beautiful event, and a lot of these people have such good hearts, and it could be 3 a.m. and I'll say, you got some music, you know, and we're all dancing and they love it. I love, we have a large Spanish speaking population from many countries, Central, South, and Caribbean, Central South America. And my mind thinks very quickly, and my Spanish is más despacio. It's a little slower. But I go in and I really try to speak. And I was telling this woman who was, you know, she was really in a hard labor. I said, lo siento, mami, mucho dinero. And they all were laughing, dolor. And I told her, I'm so sorry. She has a lot of money. but they were just laughing, and it's lightheartedness, and they had the baby kind of laughing.
Oh my gosh, Erin, what a gift you are. Really, how lucky are the women that get to birth with you. You're really an extraordinary person.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, what was another thing is they're not constantly on their cell phones. Some of them don't even have cell phones, you know? And I'm like, I'm not sure these cell phones are helping us birth. I don't think there's too much on the computer. We're disconnected. We're disconnected from people. We're disconnected from ourselves, from biology, from the real, you know, and that's what we need to be connected to when we're birthing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Such a wealth of wisdom here. And thank you so much. If people want to find you online, where can they find you?
Home Sweet Home, HOME, SWEET, birth, BIRTH.com. And it's, you know, yes, I've been a home birth midwife for 21 plus years, but it's really about that model of care. How can we have a home sweet home birth in any setting? And I've helped a lot of people, and that's what I do in the hospital, is have a home sweet home birth in the hospital. You know, some people need to be in the hospital. Some people, for whatever reasons, it could be financial, it could be they have medical issues or something that they need to be in the hospital. So why not have an empowering, beautiful, joyful experience, empowering experience in the hospital?
Love it. I'm going to put the link to Anne's website and some of her resources right here in this post. I also want to share that I am hosting a webinar called The 5 Pillars of Ecstatic Birth, and we talk about a lot of this in that training. How can we as birth practitioners bring in some of these elements, the you know, coming into our body, the sensual expansion, filling the room for our pleasure as well as our clients, so that we can really nurture ourselves. So I'm going to put the link for that as well for anyone that wants to join. And thank you again for being here. It's always so much fun to talk to you. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure.
Lots of love.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.